Your StoryForge deck comes with a 32-page booklet that includes directions on how to use the cards and a selection of spread diagrams to get you started. We're going to explore the character backstory spread. This is a great spread for developing the history of your character from the moment he's born through his formative years and all the way up until the moment your story begins. So the first card we lay down represents the character's mother. Second is the character's father. Third, the strength of their relationship. 4, the problems between them. 5, the circumstances of the character's birth. 6, the complications, if any. 7, the influence of the universe. 8 is the early strengths of this character. 9, early weaknesses. 10, their education. 11 is their belief foundation. 12 is their life experience. 13, a shaping experience in recent times. 14, an experience that left scars. 15 is the state of the character at the beginning of your story. So as we look over this spread, we see that the early life is dominated by will cards. Will cards represent conscious decisions, lifestyle choices, that sort of thing. Later, towards the end, it starts being dominated by identity. So this is how one perceives oneself, how others perceive who this character is, and that starts becoming very important towards the beginning of the story. The character's mother is represented by innocence. There are many who believe that innocence is the original sin. One must know the difference between good and evil to make an informed choice, and that knowledge may be lacking. So the mother's a bit of an ingenue. She may not really grasp right and wrong or the consequences of her actions. The father is represented by desire. Wanting something is not always bad. It can motivate one to overcome substantial obstacles to obtain the desired thing. Now, because this is a wealth card, that is not necessarily desire for another person, though if the person is very materialistic, you could interpret it that way. It may just be that they want money. They want, not full-blown into greed, because greed's another card that's in here, but they want something, and that really defines who they are. The strength of their relationship is obsession. One thought crowds out all others. One is fixated on another person or thing to the point of mania. That's their strength of their relationship. That kind of ties into this desire. It could be that the father desires the mother either as a possession or as a status symbol so much that he's absolutely locked onto it. The complications are stasis. Time stands still, or at least seems to. Could be a literal stoppage of time's passage, horrible boredom, or just a moment of such intense clarity that it feels like it lasts a lifetime. That fits in with this whole thing. We could have a sort of princess in the tower situation. Father treats mother like an object, obsesses about her, has her locked up, or at least it dominates her life so much she cannot move forward. The circumstances of the character's birth are deception, not just the concealment of truth. This card represents a deliberate, calculated attempt to convince someone or something other than the truth. Perhaps the child is not the father's. Perhaps the mother pretended she wasn't pregnant until it was too late to do something about it. In some way, the character's birth hinges on deception. The complications are nescience. When intuition and deduction both fail, one is left with no inkling of what is really going on around them. That kind of ties into this whole innocence deception thing going, where somebody does not understand how this child was born, and that's a big complication. The universe's influence on this character is gluttony. For some people, the word enough has no meaning. Whether it is food, wealth, or pleasure, if it is available, they will take as much of it as possible. Kind of ties back to Dad over here, both being wealth cards. The child was born wanting nothing. They had everything they could possibly want. The early strengths of this character are knowledge, information, the wisdom to apply it well, and the power that comes with it. So the character may be wise to all this deception and nescience going on over here, and that gives them the edge. But the early weakness is exile. One has been cast out from those formerly thought to be friends or family. Dad must have found out, kicked the kid out. Suddenly, they're on their own. They had all this plenty. It's now gone, or they don't have access to it anymore. The next card totally brings that home. The outcast. Someone who has been previously well thought of is suddenly shunned and must come to terms with being an outcast. Absolutely. They've been thrown out into the cold, wicked world. Their belief foundation is the executioner. The killer is dispassionate or even friendly towards the intended victim, but feels quite strongly about the fee paid for completing the job. That's an interesting one. Their belief foundation has perhaps left them with kind of a Machiavellian twist. The next card is their life experience, which is pride. The excessive belief in one's own worth and abilities has been called the sin from which all others arise. So this character is very proud of themselves, possibly out of the indignation of being thrown out into the world. They don't feel they deserved this. So they are prideful and perhaps angry about it. Okay, here it starts getting interesting. A shaping experience in recent times. The anti-hero. The protagonist may be someone whose goals and values are noble and good, but whose methods for achieving them are questionable. That kind of makes sense. He's a good guy. He's got knowledge of his background. He was raised well, but he's pissed off. So his methods get a little questionable at times. An experience that left scars. Pain. Actions are driven purely by physical pain, either to put an end to the suffering or to strike out at the source. We've got the makings of a really good revenge story bubbling up here. The state of the character at the beginning of your story is addiction. Substance abuse or emotional dependence blot out reason and dominate motivation, making someone dependent on something or someone. You can take that literally and say that at the beginning of your story, the character is addicted to drugs or alcohol, or more of an emotional thing where they've become so dependent on someone or something that they're messed up. You could go either way with that, but the overall shape of the spread tells me this character is pretty well focused on getting back at Dad, both for how he treated his mother and for casting him out into the world. This would be a pretty good villain. As always, if you don't like one of the cards or several of the cards, change them. Throw another card down. Like if you don't want to deal with this whole possible drug abuse angle, throw another card on it. Sacred. The person, object, or situation represented by this card is sanctified by God, pure and holy. Supernatural powers or protection may surround it or come from it. So instead of being a drug addict, now this character is blessed. And even though they're outcast, they're still the prodigal son, and now they've got some kind of magical powers backing them up in whatever they choose to do. If this spread doesn't ring true to you, it doesn't get your juices flowing, scrap it, do another spread.